Once again, overnight, we see that Russia has used precision missiles to target civilian targets. The latest estimate in the Ukrainian town that has been attacked is that up to 11 people have been killed. And this is the continuation of a very, very clear pattern of the Russian Federation to target civilian targets. One can only expect that the aim for this is to both terrorize and break the will of the Ukrainian people. It's interesting for a British audience to reflect. During the Blitz, in a period of 6 months, 23,500 Britons were killed by the Luftwaffe. Did that break the spirit of the British people at the very outset of World War II, when Britain's back was to the wall? I think everybody knows the answer to that. Will these genocidal attacks by Russia break the will of the Ukrainian people? Almost certainly they will not. A very, very recent survey that I read only this morning showed that in excess of 86% of Ukrainian people were opposed to making any concessions for peace, i.e. they stand foursquare behind President Zelensky's aim to push Russia off all Ukrainian territory and back to 1991 borders. That includes Donbass, and that importantly includes the Crimean Peninsula. I was disappointed, and I would say enraged, last Thursday night watching a BBC News Roundup when Jeremy Bowen, the channel's international editor, said very clearly that we may never definitively know who destroyed the Kakhovka and the Kakhovka Dam, which of course has made over 50,000 people homeless, and as yet we don't know the death toll and so forth. On the balance of all evidence that we do know, it was Russia who controlled the dam, who had a motive to destroy it, and who we know had mined the dam towards the end of last year and threatened to do this. So I think it was really disappointing to see a senior BBC editor unwittingly, I'm sure, fall for a Kremlin disinformation campaign, because Jeremy Bowen's words last Thursday night will have absolutely delighted Putin, his murderous thugs, and a whole army of useful idiots and Kremlin trolls. I think it's obvious that Ukraine is being deliberately tight-lipped about what they're saying. There have been reports that between, I think, 6 or 7 settlements have been liberated by advancing Ukrainian forces in the last week or so. But the overall pattern of this is there is very, very little information coming out from the Ukrainian government, from the president's office, or from the Ministry of Defense. And again, they released a very striking short film, which was, if anybody saw it, the characteristic of the film was a soldier putting his finger up to his lips with the motion of shush. So they were making the point very, very clearly that they will not be saying anything. And again, with British viewers, and I always remember this because I had 3 uncles who fought against Hitler in the Second World War. But there was a saying in Britain during the Second World War that loose lips sink ships. And I think it's very, very clear that the Ukrainian government is applying this. On the other hand, there is a huge amount of wild speculation and people, armchair generals and self-appointed Ukraine experts, making all sorts of wild and sometimes very, very optimistic claims on social media and in other media. I tend to take all of this with a pinch of salt, the same as I take with a pinch of salt, for different reasons, any claims made by the Russian Federation. Russia is a country which we know, and the world is coming to know, lies on an industrial scale. So, on both sides, deception is part of warfare. On the Ukrainian side, I think the major part of this will be, certainly they may be doing things to deceive and to confuse the Russian forces, but most of what they're doing, I think, is keeping their powder very, very dry and not giving any information as to what their intentions are. This counteroffensive will not be one big push. It will likely be a complex series of moves and probes. We can only guess at it. I won't speculate because, one, I don't have the knowledge, but two, I don't believe that speculation is particularly helpful. We certainly know that Ukraine's troops are better motivated. They are fighting. They know what they're fighting for. They're fighting for their homeland. They are undoubtedly better equipped. They are undoubtedly better trained, again, with many of them benefiting from training which they've had here on mainland Britain and in other countries. They're better equipped. We're finally giving them all of the heavy weapon systems that they need, from the long-range artillery recently with the British Storm Shadow missiles to the battle tanks, and you mentioned the German Leopards, but they also have British Challengers, and they'll soon be getting American Abrams tanks also, and a whole range of armored fighting vehicles. So they're finally getting all of the equipment and heavy weapons that they need. There's a lot of reasons for optimism, for very, very cautious optimism in the counteroffensive, which it does seem is now underway. But anybody who is expecting a one-off massive battle, which will change everything all at once, is going to be disappointed. We should maybe think of D-Day, but again, it's not even the one massive operation that D-Day was, but in terms of D-Day was the beginning of the end, but another year's fighting and many, many tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Allied troops had to die before final victory. So I'm afraid no matter what way things happen, there is still a huge cost to be paid by the Ukrainian armed forces and the Ukrainian people. General Valery Zaluzny, who is the head of the Ukrainian army, I will make this prediction, in years to come, and maybe in hundreds of years to come, in military academies around the world, this man's tactics and strategies will be studied and will be on the reading list for students in military academies. The Ukrainians have some very, very smart generals. They have also, with huge help from Britain and Operation Orbital, they have been retraining and restructuring their armed forces going back to 2015. I know because I worked quite closely with the commanders of Operation Orbital when I was out in Ukraine between 2016 and 2018, and I saw firsthand the sort of work that they were doing. The Canadians and the Americans and other countries have also, over the same period of time, been very, very involved in training and upgrading the Ukrainian army from what effectively was a Warsaw Pact model, which was the old alliance at the time of the Soviet Union, to a NATO model. And there are many, many reasons that we would consider the NATO model to be superior to the Warsaw Pact model.